Welcome back to the mini EQ series from me, Deborah McPhillamy, and this is part 4 where I'm going to explain a little bit more about the power of your thoughts and your beliefs. Now, I know that for a couple of years now, there's been this whole thing that's been going around about that, you just got to think positively and have positive thoughts. It really isn't that simple, is it? I mean, it gets easier as you learn to retrain your brain and the way you're thinking, but to just tell somebody to be positive and to think positively is not always possible, and I'm going to tell you why. So thought is obviously incredibly, unbelievably important, because thought is you actually talking to yourself. And sometimes it's not even you talking to yourself, because when we grow up, we are brought up with other people's voices, their opinions, and their opinions are often voices that are left kind of lingering around in your head. And so often your thoughts are not really your own thoughts. They're almost like thoughts from the past. So if you can imagine, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I have, where something comes out of your mouth and you go, oh my goodness, it sounded just like my mother. So that often happens because what our parents and caregivers and teachers and educators, how they have raised us and educated us, that often, as I say, those thoughts linger, and those thoughts are often not ours. They're not even our opinions. They're not even our values. Now, I want to explain to you a little bit more about thoughts and why they are so incredibly important. So, as I explained in the very first video, that how your brain creates your emotions and how the information is received through your senses, and how that creates a thought, and the thought creates a feeling, and the feeling creates emotion. So obviously, if you want to change the feeling and you want to change the emotion, you want to change the thought, because the thought is actually the end result of you processing something that has happened. And often it's also the end result of the meaning that you've added to something that has happened. So think about it this way. There can be two people standing next to each other and they see the very same event, but they interpret it in two completely different ways. Now, why that happens is because they have added meaning or they've seen different things. So therefore, they are going to have different thoughts. But your thoughts don't only come from the information that you're receiving in through your senses. Your thoughts also come from your beliefs. Now, if you remember in part 1, I spoke about how we have these beliefs that sink down to our unconscious brain, and often those beliefs are created in those first 7 years of our lives, and we don't remember them. We just don't remember them. So when I'm talking about beliefs here, it's like so say for instance, and I'm going to take a real radical subject here, okay? So I'm going to talk about racism, and I'm going to talk a little bit about religion. So if you think about racism, no child is born a racist, right? A child is raised in an environment of people who are racist. So what those people keep saying creates the racism within that child. So therefore, a child has this belief that another race is scary or fearful or wrong or whatever it is. I mean, I'm not too clued up on racism because I've never been one. But what I'm saying is that all those beliefs that the parents or the caregivers or the educators or the communities, what they have about different races is then put onto the child without the child even knowing it, because they are taking in all this information. They are being downloaded, all this information has been downloaded, and it's kind of just coming in without any kind of filter, because remember what I said, they can't rationalize, they can't figure it out, because that structure is not yet available to them in their brain. So their belief, therefore, is that there's something wrong with a different race. So when a child who's now grown up, so possibly they're a young adult, and they see a different race person and they react as a racist towards them, how they're going to do that is because the belief is going to create that thought, and the thought is going to create the feeling and the reaction. So if you think about it this way, so they got this program believing that there's something wrong with a different race, and that program is in their unconscious mind. That comes up to the top of the brain, creates that thought, which is, as I said, communication. And then what they're thinking, some people will either process and wait and not just say something. Other people will just say it. But thoughts are your internal communication, which you can make external. So I'm hoping that makes sense to you. So your thoughts also come from your beliefs. But now often we have hidden beliefs, we have irrational beliefs, we have unconscious beliefs that have been created in different ways. And I don't want to go into it here as well, but there is a way that we create beliefs without us even knowing it. And it often happens when there's a traumatic event that has happened. Sometimes people will have a car accident, something that will almost make their brain stop. There's something called a 20-second mind dip, and it usually happens when something traumatic has happened to you, and the brain literally slows down. And in those 20 seconds, whatever you remembered seeing, or when you created a belief around this event that happened, gets stored straight into your unconscious mind, and you have no awareness about it. But that will constantly, that unconscious belief, whether it's rational or irrational, will constantly create a thought. That thought will create how you feel about yourself and will create your behavior or your actions. So let me give you another classic example, because it doesn't have to be about an accident that something like that happens, because with children, trauma is trauma. It doesn't have to be a big trauma. It can be a little thing. It can be simply losing their teddy bear, or a parent promising to do something or buy them something or give them something and they don't do it, and then they get punished because they're upset about it. But I'll give you another classic example. So say, for instance, your heart was broken. So your partner broke up with you. They left. It created incredible trauma. Your brain and your mind wants to protect you from that pain. So it slows down. And in that 20-second dip, you're going, oh my gosh, I'm a failure. I'm not good enough. I'm not important. I'm not lovable. Whatever it is. And what you made up in your mind while your brain has taken that slow down like that, formulates that belief. That belief then becomes that thought. So you're constantly thinking that you're not lovable, you're not acceptable, you're a failure, whatever it is. And what your thoughts do, not only do they create your feelings and your emotions, but your thoughts are frequencies. So the human brain emits signals all the time. So we are like towers, we like radio towers. And our frequencies are on the same frequency as radio waves. So your brain is constantly transmitting, but it's also constantly receiving. So if your thought is one of, I am a loser, I am not lovable, I am not acceptable, that is the frequency that's constantly going to go out. And this actually relates to the previous video that I was talking about, how your personality, because all of this is tied in, creates your reality. Because if you not only have, everything going on with your brain profile and your wiring and how you see the world and what you focus on, but if you've got these beliefs that are underlying about you being a loser, guess what happens? You're going to transmit that, but you're also going to attract people that believe that or agree with you, agree with your belief. So either they think you're a loser or they match up because they're also a loser. And I know it sounds like a horrible word, that loser, but you kind of draw people into your life that matches up to your belief, your frequency, because your beliefs create your thoughts, and your thoughts are your frequencies. So that too has a massive impact on your reality. I mean, I used to have this crazy belief about men. You can read about it in my book called The Relationship Magnet. And it's the very reason that I ended up in so many bad relationships, because I kept attracting the same kind of people into my life over and over again. And the only time that I was able to break that cycle and attract different people into my life was when I knew and figured out what was going on in my conscious mind, and specifically with my beliefs. And the only way to access your unconscious mind, to find out what is going on there, is through your feelings. Because your reality and what's going on here and how things show up in your life will tell you what is going on in your beliefs and in your unconscious mind. So that is why your beliefs and your thoughts are so important. I cannot stress that enough, because your beliefs and your thoughts, without you even realizing it, create your reality and contribute to your life. And it's what makes your life either very hard or can make your life effortless. So that is it for part 4. Thank you for tuning in. And I will see you in part 5, where I talk about how your environment impacts your emotions. From me, Deborah McPhillamy, I hope to see you in the next episode. Bye for now.